The second Holocaust is underway. It seems there is widespread agreement that what I've been predicting for years has now rolled out in numerous countries. Identification, exclusion, pauperization or confiscation, deportation, ghettoization, and then extermination. We are now in the early phases throughout America and now in Europe. Starting in Barcelona, Spain, we see mapping of Jewish and Zionist addresses for destructive and repressive action.
And now, The Edwin Black Show. Sponsored by the books of Edwin Black, available on Amazon and at booksellers worldwide. And now, here's Edwin.
Hello, this is Edwin Black, investigative journalist, historian, and human rights author of 325 editions in 40 languages in 190 countries worldwide, including IBM and the Holocaust, War Against the Weak, and my latest scoop book, Israel Strikes Iran, as well as a bold new 15th anniversary edition of Nazi Nexus. Ours is a show for opinion makers and decision makers, not mass clicks. So subscribe for alerts at theedwinblackshow.com. And if you want to support our work, we surely need your assistance. Please visit theedwinblackshow.com/support. Your help, big or small, doesn't matter, assures our complete and utter intellectual and uncensored journalistic independence, as you shall soon see. Go to theedwinblackshow.com/support and keep us independent. Today's episode is made possible and sponsored without any preconditions, requests, or stipulations by members of the Jewish communities of San Francisco and of Boca Raton and Dallas, and co-sponsored by my bold new 15th anniversary edition of Nazi Nexus, available everywhere across the planet in 12 paperback, hardback, electronic, and audiobook editions. That said, remember, I only speak for myself, and the same goes for any of my guests. Today, we welcome viewers from across America, including our 4 watch parties in the villages, Newton, Mass., Chicago, and Tampa Bay, led by our friend Harvey. Overseas, I see viewers logged on from most of our usuals, Australia and New Zealand. I see Great Britain. I see Canada, Germany, France, Poland, our big one in Hungary, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, Japan, and another really big one in Panama, as well as Israel, plus other countries. The Edwin Black Show, along with our YouTube site, speaks frankly and without tremor to a fragmented world seeking better understanding of our tormented past, our present very, very tense, and a turbulent future still uncertain. By the way, stay tuned for my special word of wisdom at the very end of the show, just before I sign off. Today, I, with no permission from anyone, on my own, am launching a new global initiative which includes an action website found at stopgenocideagainst.israel.com. This is not a Jewish defense site. This is a Jewish offense site where we seek to facilitate the prosecution, arrest, conviction, and imprisonment of those who are trying to destroy Israel militarily, and those civilians in the United States and elsewhere who are complicit by virtue of their funding, incitement, and other furtherance of those goals. We're going to be talking about the genocide perpetrated against Israel by both military and terrorist groups who seek to destroy Jewish Israel, and also the civilians who commit genocidal acts by calling for the economic, cultural, and physical destruction of Jewish Israel. I understand the powerful word genocide is vastly overused, misappropriated, and thereby diluted by some groups who have called everyone they disagree with a racist, a Nazi, and a fascist. Eventually, those words, when overused and popularly abused, that they can lose their potency. But just because idiots cry wolf doesn't mean wolves don't exist. The fact is, genocide, that is the acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, and that is the sole definition. Genocidal acts violate international law, U.S. federal law, and the local laws of about 100 countries, and I'm going to explain that. First, we will deal with the obvious question. Can Israel be protected from genocide if it is committing genocide in Gaza? We answer this question first out of necessity because completely uninformed people, some of them very smart, will ask it. Israel is not committing genocide in Gaza. Self-defense is not genocide. Military response is not genocide, even if civilian deaths occur due to the deliberate actions of Hamas in creating an entire territory of terror attack tunnels and involving non-combatants. Military preemption is not genocide. It has been a justified act since the 16th century. Proportionality is based not on numbers, but on the force required to achieve the just military objective. The falsehoods and exhortations about genocide committed by Israel mimic the efforts of Goebbels and Stryker to create a myth of evil as a justification for an actual genocide against the Jews and other innocents during the Third Reich. I have been closely studying genocide for more than a half century and devoted my life to the topic. Here's what you need to know. During the 12-year Holocaust that began on January 30th, 1933, with the ascent of Adolf Hitler, right through the war years beginning on September 1st, 1939, and continuing until the fall of the Third Reich in the first days of May 1945, the world witnessed a new type of crime against humanity, one that involved an evil combination of military power, Wall Street financing, American corporate collusion with IBM, Ford, GM, the Carnegie Institution, and the Rockefeller Foundation. And you can learn more about that in my book, Nazi Nexus. Plus the work of propagandists, mass media, doctors, lawyers, judges, and economic boycotters. They all came together across national lines to destroy the Jewish people, and they said so. During the war years, specifically 1943 and 1944, Polish Jewish refugee Raphael Lemkin created the concept for a new category of international crime to encompass the never-before-seen scope of the Nazi effort to destroy the Jews. Lemkin, himself an attorney and prosecutor, named this crime genocide, a completely new word derived from both Latin and Greek roots. This new crime would address not only the actual killers, but those who were complicit, those who enabled, those who made it possible, and those who incited. He began his ideas on the campus of Duke University, but then moved to Washington, where he worked with the US Justice Department. Lemkin published his findings in a little-known book titled Axis Rule in Occupied Europe. The concept of genocide was formally adopted by the international community and became the basis for post-war prosecutions in many countries, including the famous Nuremberg war crimes trials. Thousands of prosecutions targeted not only military figures, but also politicians, diplomats, radio announcers, publishers, propagandists, bankers, lawyers, doctors, economic boycotters, and even strategists. There were approximately 30,000 prosecutions in all. Genocide thus addressed the full scope of the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. That's a quote. Moreover, genocide encompasses a variety of converging destructive acts, such as, quote, A, killing members of the group, B, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, C, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction, in whole or in part, D, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, E, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group, and that's a close quote. That's a quote from the genocide definition and international treaty. As I say, about 30,000 people were convicted in numerous countries across Europe and Japan for acting directly or indirectly in concert with the Nazi effort. Genocide was about more than the hands-on killers. It was about those who directly encouraged it and aided and abetted it with their words, their deeds, and economic actions. There was and is no free speech exemption, so radio broadcasters, propagandists, rally organizers, and newspaper editors were prosecuted for incitement under Article 3, Sub C. And I remind you that mere hate speech was insufficient. It was destruction speech. Sometimes the destruction speech is clear and obvious to everyone. Just before the 1939 Blitzkrieg, Nazi editor Julius Streicher of Der Stürmer wrote, quote, "A punitive expedition must come against the Jews in Russia, a punitive expedition which will provide the same fate for them that every murderer and criminal must expect. Death sentence and execution. The Jews in Russia must be killed. They must be exterminated, root and branch," that's a close quote. When he was convicted and sentenced to be hung, the judges and the framers of the genocide laws held it was impossible for so many people to participate in destroying so many Jews without the mass public poisoning of their minds. I quote the verdict and the judges right now. For his 25 years of speaking, in Streicher's speeches and articles, week after week, month after month, I'm still quoting, he infected the German mind with the virus of anti-Semitism and incited German people to active persecution. Streicher's incitement to murder and extermination at a time when Jews in the East were being killed under horrible conditions clearly constitutes persecution on political and racial grounds in connection with war crimes and constitutes a crime against humanity, close quote. Not only was Streicher tried and executed, but Hans Fritsch, chief of the German press division that run by Goebbels, and Fritsch issued the instructions to German newspapers, inciting and encouraging them, I'm quoting, for the commission of war crimes by deliberately falsifying news to arouse in the German people those passions which led them to the commission of atrocities, close quote. Hans Fritsch eventually served 8 years in prison under a different war crime tribunal. The International Crimes Tribunal, following the war with Bangladesh, found Ghulam Azam of the terror group Jan8 guilty of 28 counts of inciting genocide for public denunciation of Hindus and Bengalis as enemies of Islam and calling for them to be, quote, eradicated from the soil of East Pakistan, close quote. The Genocide Tribunal in Bangladesh found that Azam, quote, expressed hatred and communal feeling towards the Hindu community with intent to destroy or deport this religious group from the country, close quote. And that many of his statements, I'm quoting again now, amounted to clear incitement to commit crimes against humanity and genocide. Azam got 20 years in jail. In the Rwanda genocide trials, 3 media people were convicted of incitement to genocide. I mean here Hassan Nagezi, Ferdinand Nahimana, and Jean Bosco Barayagwiza. The sentencing judge declared, quote, the power of the media, I'm quoting, to create and destroy fundamental human values comes with great responsibility. Those who control such media are accountable for its consequences, close quote. The judges added, without a firearm, machete, or any other physical weapon, saying to the defendants, you caused the deaths of thousands of innocent civilians, period, close quote. Now hear this. Euphemisms and dehumanization that contributes to destruction has long been held to be genocidal. For example, genocide trials have long held that verminization, demonization, and other forms of dehumanization can be considered direct incitement to genocide. Calling people vermin, the courts have held, connotes, quote, that extermination would be considered normal and desirable, close quote. In practice in Rwanda, for example, Hutu leaders often referred to Tutsis as Inyenzi, or cockroaches. The Belgian radio broadcaster Georges Rijoux pled guilty to incitement to genocide in the Rwanda genocide trials for calling Tutsis Inyenza, or cockroaches, which meant, quote, persons to be killed, according to the court. In 2012, the Rwandan Hutu writer Leon Mugesera told an audience, quote, we the people are obligated to take responsibility ourselves and wipe out this scum, period, close quote. After the genocide, this guy fled to Canada, but he was deported from Canada to Rwanda with the Canadian Supreme Court ruling there is, quote, reasonable grounds exist to believe that Mr. Mugesera committed a crime against humanity. That's with his words. That's a close quote. I won't belabor the point. Incitement to destruction and genocide has over and over again been shown to be a genocidal crime, whether it's a direct incitement, clear incitement, or an inferential incitement. Now, here's where this discussion of international law gets really personal and hits home. Some 100 countries have adopted the International Genocide Treaty, and all or most of its provisions as domestic crimes. That means that any of the enumerated crimes of genocide are local crimes. In the United States, it's the 1987 Proxmire Act, more formally known as the Genocide Convention Implementation Act of 1987. It was passed by an overwhelming voice vote, making all elements of international genocide also federal crimes of genocide in the United States. The Department of Justice right now operates a genocide unit. The unit's website calls itself more formally the Human Rights Violators and War Crimes Center, and the front page text says that the unit is designed to prevent the United States from becoming a safe haven for individuals who commit war crimes and genocide, as well as other human rights abuses. They have a tip line where you can report this, 866-347-2423. I'll say it again, 866-347-2423. It's a long wait, but if you're sure of your information, cite the Proxmire Act and refer to Agent 70, who took the very first genocide report against those who chant globalize the Intifada. He was extremely patient and diligent. I know because I personally made the first referral to this agent. In Great Britain, we know in the recent past that this place has not been a friendly environment for either the Jewish people or Israel. The government is considered anti-Israel due to political factors and has concomitantly allowed genocidal actions to fester, including incitement to genocide, complicity with genocide, and other violations of Article 2, Sub C of the International Genocide Treaty and the local laws, quote, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, period, close quote. However, before the tide turned against British Jews in Israel, genocide laws were enacted in Great Britain. Hence, the authorities are obligated to investigate and have publicly promised to do so. Make no mistake, complaints will be breaking new and uncertain legal ground for the UK in enforcing genocide provisions committed in Great Britain itself. But the Metropolitan Police understanding and treatment of laws regarding hate speech and incitement to terrorism is evolving rapidly right now and more protectively, as demonstrated by the December 2025 arrests of various persons who chanted globalize the Intifada. Police have already arrested and charged more than 2,700 persons for supporting the terrorism-linked Palestine Action Group, which routinely says globalize the Intifada. The Metropolitan Police has a genocide tip line. In Canada, it's the Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act. There is a dedicated website, a unit, and a tip line citing genocide complaints. If you call the hotline, cite Section 318, titled Advocating Genocide and Related Sections. To this end, I have, with my mighty volunteer staff, created a powerful genocide against Israel reporting website. Go to stopgenocideagainst.israel.com. There you will see all the cautions on making a report. And then if you're sure of yourself, the exact phone numbers, emails, and government genocidal websites to report anyone, any organization. We included a link to the Senate Ethics Committee, which has a stated goal of investigating and referring violations of federal law, and that would include this law. You can go to stopgenocideagainst.israel.com for all details, and please also see my powerful video on this topic at theedwinblackshow.com. It's age restricted for violent Holocaust imagery, so you need to sign into your YouTube account and approve. Let me preempt your question right now. Don't bother putting it in the question period. I know what's on your mind. Yes, the law covers Minnesota Representative Ilhan Omar. Yes, it covers New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani. If you are so inclined, make the report on these individuals to the Department of Justice. If you lack the muscles in your fingers, I'll do it for you. And yes, I'm here and now calling openly for the Department of Justice to investigate Mamdani and Omar on violation of the Proxmire Genocide Act, and if justified, refer them for arrest and prosecution. In case you didn't hear what I said, arrest and prosecution. And yes, the law extends to the Soros Foundations, to the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, to groups under the banner of In Our Lifetime and By Any Means Necessary, and the Golden Calf Jews who support such groups. Don't think a Jew cannot be prosecuted for such crimes. Think again. My book, War Against the Weak, devotes an entire chapter to the war crime trials of Buchenwald prisoner Edwin Katzenellenbogen, an American Jewish doctor who cooperated with the guards and was sentenced to a long-term in prison. The second Holocaust is underway. It seems there is widespread agreement that what I've been predicting for years is now rolled out in numerous countries. Identification, exclusion, pauperization or confiscation, deportation, ghettoization, and then extermination. We are now in the early phases. Throughout America and now in Europe, starting in Barcelona, Spain, we see mapping of Jewish and Zionist addresses for destructive and repressive action. Barcelona, Spain. Spain, you remember Spain, the fascist partner of Nazi Germany with their own IBM code in the concentration camps. Everywhere, Jews are starting to abandon their long-cherished homes in the English-speaking world and elsewhere, making aliyah to Israel. Israel, in recent days, has already had a drill practicing for the mass absorption of more than 10,000 people to Israel in a short span of days. This is like the refugee period in the 1930s. The killers think that once we're in Israel, they can finish it off with an Iranian bomb or perhaps a Turkish assault. Think again. This reporting and prosecution protocol I have initiated is already being done to us. They're doing it to us now. Just a few days ago, the Hind Rajab Foundation in Belgium discovered an Israeli soldier in Prague and immediately filed a complaint under Section 7 of the Czech Criminal Code, which covers genocide and demands an investigation. We are surrounded, just like the Jews in my parents' day. We are surrounded by an international web of hatred and a spreading determination to destroy the 76% of world Jewry that constitutes Israel and the Jews worldwide who support it. We have to fight back. Talk is cheap. Everyone talks about doing something. I have finally done something, and now everyone everywhere can take action with their phone and their keyboard at stopgenocideagainst.Israel.com. As I say, this is not Jewish defense, this is Jewish offense. Mass persecution is not possible without mass indoctrination. I'm not waiting for Stryker or Mamdani to say he won't do it anymore. Time after time, the international tribunals and legal experts have declared that mass persecution is not possible without mass poisoning of the narrative and what the legal scholars call, quote, the marketplace of ideas, close quote. Now, I launched this project on my own, using my own nickel and dime, my own loving and devoted volunteers, and my own sleepless nights. When I tried to start a support page for donations, PayPal debanked me within 72 hours. I've accepted donations through PayPal for decades and still do on many of my websites openly, but for this, PayPal debanked me. Fortunately, we replaced PayPal on the site donations page with Square. Square is an excellent donation taker, and I've used them for years. So I've received a few gracious donations. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. If I have to sell my portable typewriter, I will flex the chutzpah and the beitzim to do my utmost to stop this military and civilian genocide. This task will be aided by eminent attorneys everywhere. Every legal expert I spoke to was in favor of this program, except one. Every lawyer willing to participate except one. Which brings me to our excellent panel. Three of the most distinguished, knowledgeable, and accomplished attorneys on planet Earth. You will hear from America's most treasured Jewish attorney, Nathan Lewin, up before the Supreme Court some 28 times, and also America's most vital international human rights attorney, Richard Heideman. But first, I bring you one of the most knowledgeable experts on international law, Avi Bell in Jerusalem. I can tell you, Avi is going to complain that he thinks this is long overdue. He's been working on this for years with Canada's famed Edwin. Avi, take the camera and tell us what's what.
Thank you very much. I have to say that I'm not sure that you can say that I've been working on this with Edwin. I've been working on this. Edwin Cutler's been working on this, and others have been working on this. And I very, very much hope that your venture will light a fire under some people and get some serious action going. So let me just set out the basics of this. Edwin said this very well. The Genocide Act, the Genocide Convention, and the various genocide acts in 100 different countries say basically they lay out a crime that has two basic elements, an intent element and an act element. The intent is very specifically stated, right? It is to destroy certain kinds of groups in whole or in part. As such, this is important, to destroy them as members of the group, not otherwise. And then it has act requirements that are actually fairly trivial, so that, for example, causing serious harm, serious bodily harm to somebody, if it's carried out with that specific intent, a harm to one person is a genocidal act. Now, that's important because the real crux of any prosecution, of any act against genocide, is to show the intent to destroy the special kinds of groups as such. Now, we are Jews, we can call us a national group or a religious group. Israeli Jews are certainly both. Either of those, if there's intent to destroy us in whole or in part. As such, that is genocidal intent. And almost any act that's undertaken to fulfill that is genocide. So, for example, the decades-long terrorist campaign that Iran has been running against Jews in Argentina, in Israel, everywhere else in the world, in Europe, that is genocide. I'm not the first person to point this out. So Edwin Cutler, as you mentioned, Edwin, wrote a brief about 20 years ago during the time when Ahmadinejad was president of Iran, saying it's time to prosecute Iran for its genocidal acts, and it is stating out loud its genocidal intent. Now, I, about 20 years ago, pointed out in response to something idiotic that had been pro-Hezbollah, that had been written by Human Rights Watch. I pointed out that Hezbollah, the leaders of Hezbollah, had made plain their genocidal intent, and therefore Hezbollah killings of Jews constituted genocide. Now, let me read to you what the response of then head of Human Rights Watch, Ken Roth, was. What he said, he accused me of being curiously ignorant, and then he said, in one of his more bizarre arguments, Bell cites the Hezbollah leader's genocidal wishes to suggest that Hezbollah is in fact committing genocide against the Jews. It should be enough to join Human Rights Watch in calling Hezbollah's attacks war crimes. But to claim that the ultimate crime of genocide is now underway is to cheapen a concept whose continued vitality could be a matter of life and death for those who are really facing it. Well, with all due respect to Ken Roth, not that much respect is due, frankly, but the cheapening here is the denial that Hezbollah and Hamas and the other is Iranian-backed terrorist organizations that explicitly say they want to kill Jews as such, destroy the Israeli Jewish population as such, to deny that they are committing genocide. That is the cheapening. If there is a coin that is being debased here, a verbal coin, it is those organizations are cheapening the words human rights by pretending to promote human rights while at the same time promoting genocide against the Jewish people. Now, I have one more thing to say, and this is really important, Edwin, and then you can steer me to wherever you need me to go. I think that we have to understand that the institutions that we're playing with here are not, for the most part, friendly. There's a reason that South Africa brought charges in the International Court of Justice against Israel in support of Hamas's genocidal campaign, having the chutzpah to claim Israel is committing genocide. And they did this because they know fully well that the ICJ is likely to back Hamas and South Africa and Iran a dozen times before they will ever back the Jews. But there is such a thing as a legal system that is much better, that is much more objective, that is much more committed to the rule of law. And we have one in the United States. And as it happens, there is an individual who participated in the atrocities of October 7th, 2023. That is somebody who committed the crimes not only of murder and rape, but also of genocide. That is carrying out killings in furtherance of the intent to destroy the Israeli Jewish people in part. This person is in custody. He has charges filed against him in Louisiana, federal charges. His name is Mahmoud Muhtadi. Mahmoud Muhtadi was charged with immigration fraud and a variety of other things. He was not charged. He was not charged with genocide. Now, it is very clear that he is guilty of genocide. They have the phone intercepts of his conversations, encouraging people to join him, going over the line, going over the fence, through the breaks in the walls in order to attack in Israel on October 7th. And he therefore by open acts, furthered a conspiracy to commit genocide. Now, what you should do, in addition to everything that Edwin is telling you to do, is you should contact your representatives, contact everybody you can, we want to see the Justice Department add to the charge sheet against Mahmoud Muhtadi the charge of genocide. It's time to start charging the real genocidaires, the real murderers, with the horrible crimes that they performed, and get it in front of a real court of law instead of a joke like the ICJ.
Well, that's, Avi, an amazing presentation by you. I would note that at StopGenocideAgainstIsrael.com, we have not yet bothered to put a reference to the ICC because we don't think that they're anything more than a kangaroo court against Israel. I'm really interested in this candidate for prosecution under the Genocide Act, the Proxmire Genocide Act in the United States, and which inter alia incorporates the anything overseas because it has such a provision.
Let me tell you where you can find. Let me tell you where you can find him. Okay,
Yeah.
There's a press release that was put out by the Justice Department on October 17th, 2025. The headline is Gaza man arrested for alleged involvement in October 7th, 2023 terrorist attacks. Put that name, right? Put that headline. Gaza man arrested for alleged involvement in October 7th, 2023 terrorist attacks. Press release, October 17th, 2025, and you'll find it. You'll find the press release, and then you'll find all the details you need, including a link to the charge sheet.
first of all, the report that you mentioned, Eve is listening. She's mastering the website. She will take that along with your other articles and Edwin Kotler's articles, and we will post that up at items of interest. We will get this guy's name. We will call the tip line at the Department of Justice. I'll wait as long as I have to, and I'll talk to Agent 70, and I will report this guy, and then we'll do an article about it, and we'll make a thing about it. So we have the poster child for our first prosecution. Avi, thank you very much. You have done a great deal on this planet to ensure and preserve Jewish rights, and I want to thank you for participating in this effort. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to turn to Nathan Lewin. No discussion of this nature is complete without the insights of America's most precious Jewish civil rights attorney. Nathan Lewin in Washington is with us. Nat, please take the screen.
Thank you, Edwin. Your presentation and Avi's are very compelling, but nothing is more compelling than the very language of the United States Code. Title 18, the Federal Penal Code, has as Chapter 50A provisions regarding genocide, and they clearly cover this case that Avi has mentioned, as well as others in which genocide has not been mentioned, but should be. The federal criminal law regarding genocide should be cited and applied. It was a law enacted at the urging of Senator Proxmire, so it became known as the Proxmire Act, enacted in 1987. And Senator Proxmire, a very important member of the large American legislature, commented on it as a matter of fact, and I think talked about it every day that Congress was in session. As a matter of principle, he thought it was significant that the United States exercise its power under the Genocide Convention. It was called the Genocide Convention Implementation Act of 1987. That's the Proxmire Act. And you just have to look at the Federal Penal Code to know how it applies. It specifically says that the basic offense of genocide applies to anybody who either kills or injures or causes permanent impairment or subjects groups to conditions. What is the group? The group is anyone who, a set of individuals whose identity as such is distinctive in terms of common cultural traditions or heritage. A set of individuals whose identity as such is distinctive in terms of nationality or national origins, or in terms of their common religious creed, beliefs, doctrines, practices, or rituals. That's genocide under American law. And the tragedy is that the United States Department of Justice and prosecutors in the United States have failed to read and implement the plain provisions of the Proxmire Act. And therefore, the time has come not only to make calls, but to send letters and to demand that all those who have been involved and participated not only in the terrible acts of October 7th, 2023, because they were committing genocide, but those in the United States who are supporting that, who are demanding that the Intifada be expanded, should also be investigated for their efforts to support genocide. And that's why this initiative that you have started, Edwin, is very important. We're not just simply speaking about anti-Semitism in the United States, whether one views anti-Semitism as being based on attacks against Israel based on cultural, original identity of the Jews living in Israel, but because the provisions of genocide, the provisions designed to prohibit genocide, apply there. And they've been applied in the United States. If you go back and you look to find legal cases or precedent, the interesting thing is that one of the leading authorities to be cited in this whole effort involves the Rwandan genocide, in which 800,000 Tutsis were murdered in Rwanda, a place which most people, myself included, would not be able to identify on a map of Africa. But they were murdered, and a case was brought against someone, Idrissa Gassana, who allegedly participated in that genocide and then lied about all that in achieving both entry to the United States, residence in the United States, and ultimately, if you can believe it, citizenship in the United States. And there is now a federal proceeding in the District Court of New Hampshire against Idrissa Gassana, in which the participation in that Rwandan genocide plays a central role, because Idrissa denied participating in genocide in Rwanda. So you have legal authority in the United States, both in the statute and in decided cases and opinions by judges that would support a very vigorous effort today to implement the prohibitions of U.S. law under the Proxmire Act.
Thank you very much, Nat. That was extremely persuasive and fabulously enlightening that you've done the research to find that there's one active case. It kind of reminds me of the former Office of Special Investigations, which used to investigate guys like Demanyuk, and when these were Nazis, and when they lied for admission into the United States, their citizenship was struck down and they were deported. I should mention that government officials wanted to appear on this show, but they couldn't find the right person at the right time because we were live. But you should know that one of the government agencies involved in enforcing aspects of the genocide law is ICE. So they're ready to deport. I'd like to, before
you talk about proceeding against individuals like Demyanyuk and others who obtained residence in the United States, even though they were war criminals. I prosecuted one of those, Valerian Trifa, who was an individual who persecuted and hounded Jews and then managed to find his way to the United States. And Trifa ultimately voluntarily gave up his American nationality and his residence and left the United States in order to avoid a trial in which that would be disclosed.
I'd like to emphasize that we're not talking about hate speech. We're talking about destruction speech. We're not talking about simple anti-Semitism. And as Avi Bell says, it isn't that it has to happen against 1,000 people. It can happen against one, just as the call to murder can only involve the call to murder one person, not just 50 people. But I'd like to ask you a question, Nat. As smart as you are, as smart as I am, as smart as Avi is, and Richard, and all of our friends, how come we've spent 20 to 30 years fighting for everybody else's rights and we forgot to look at our own?
Well, I will not necessarily endorse your qualification and your marvelous appraisal of our brilliance. But I think that the fact is that the world has ignored genocide, really, until now. It's being called and used against Israel when it should have been used all these years to fight what is hatred and attacks on Israel and Jews. That's continued to be genocide even after the end of the Second World War.
Well, you've aptly stated it. Thank you very much, Nat. Please stick around. Our third expert, ladies and gentlemen, is the internationally renowned and highly accomplished human rights jurist, Richard Heideman, now I'm not sure if he's in Florida or in Washington. Richard, please take the screen, tell us what you know, and tell us if you have an important announcement for us.
Thank you very much, Edwin, and my appreciation personally to Avi and to Nat, the commitment of all of you to this issue, to raising voices, to raising awareness is essential. I'm sorry to say there aren't enough of us standing up and speaking out. As you requested, Edwin, I'll first reference the announcement. There are many of us who believe that we cannot continue as business as usual across the organized Jewish community, that we must take the approach of zero tolerance, which our law firm takes in all the cases we bring, and which I believe has to be utilized in every possible way. Accordingly, the announcement is the establishment of the International Leadership and Security Action Council, affectionately known as ILSAC, ILSAC. Its goal, its determination, its intent is to allow the leaders around the world, both Jewish and non-Jewish, who care about these issues, to band together so that we can utilize our experience, we can share our vision, we can express voice, and we can be the leaders we've all been trained to be, with a focus on action, not having committee meetings, but rather implementation action in such a way that will truly address the challenges we are facing from a leadership deficit point of view, from security attacks point of view, and from the need to do it in a smarter, better, more contemporary, faster, more incisive way. So we'll be getting more information out to everybody. We hope you will join us. This is not a top-down approach. It needs all of us. Let's address the issue of the day, genocide. I went back and found an article by a friend, historian, Rafi Madoff, who some of you may know, that he wrote in 2021, where he starts the article by saying, quote, a new poll claims that 22% of American Jews believe, quote, Israel is committing genocide against the Palestinians, unquote. Now, this is 5 years ago. It predates Gaza. It predates October 7th. In fact, it's during the period following Israel's evacuation, unilateral withdrawal from Gaza, which, as we all know, took place in 2005. Yet Israel was accused of committing genocide back then and ever since. Where does all of this come from? First, I want to stay with the issue of genocide, the term. You heard it referred to by Edwin, that the word genocide was coined by the legal scholar Raphael Lemkin. That was in 1944. Madoff wrote in his article, quote, Lemkin was haunted by the failure of the international community to act against Turkish officials involved in the slaughter of more than 1 million Armenians in 1914 to 1918. He believed, the article continues, that, quote, to galvanize a more effective response to future atrocities, a new word was needed to label such a unique type of crime. One more comment from Madoff. Quote, Lemkin's efforts to popularize the term, quote, genocide, unquote, this new word, were crowned with success in December 1948 when the United Nations adopted its Genocide Convention, an international treaty criminalizing genocide. And it defines genocide as, quote, acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such, end quote. So that was 1948. 1 year after the adoption of the partition resolution calling for the end of the British mandate in May 48. So May 48, Israel declares her independence. The partition resolution envisioned the Jewish state, an Arab state, and special status for Jerusalem. The Jewish state has come into existence. It was barely 6 months old when the term genocide was embodied in the Genocide Convention. What has happened ever since? An effective turning of the tables on the victims, that is the Jews, the Israelis, turning the victims into being perpetrators. And we've seen it consistently out of the United Nations at every turn. Zionism, racism in the 1970s, the Nairobi Conference in the 1980s, the Durban Conference at the beginning of 2000, adopting the Durban program, the plan that has led to this multi-war effort, this multi-pronged effort against Israel. Hit Israel on the ground with war, hit Israel in the air, hit Israel with terrorism, with boycotts, with economic boycotts, with academic boycotts, with sanctions in every possible way. Make it clear that Israel is the perpetrator. So what happened at the UN? This constant beating led by countries of the world that has beaten and beaten and beaten to where it's become popularized to blame the Jews. In fact, it's become acceptable. And we're seeing it today. We're seeing it in New York. We're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing it in Canada. We're seeing it everywhere. I could go on and on with cities. We're seeing it in Australia. We're seeing it everywhere. And the world hasn't cared because the world has been part of this. There's a joy that goes along with it. And indeed, following Edwin's opening, following Avi's comments, following Nat's comments, Indeed, what we are seeing is a criminal genocidal approach. Avi Bell and I recently met in Jerusalem. We talked about designing a case that should be brought in the United States that we're working on. I'll only tell you about part of it. I advanced a theory that to Avi called there has been established a culture of hate. Who has participated in this culture of hate? And Avi added it and called it more of a conspiracy of hate. There's a lot more to it. You'll see that roll out as well. But the culture of hate, the conspiracy of hate, has focused on one people, the Jewish people, the Israeli people, those who believe in and love Zionism, those who believe in a better future for all people, not only Israelis, not only Jews. Let's fast forward to today and let me close. The attacks that have been ongoing are criminal in nature. And the analysis that Nat has given, that Avi has given, that Edwin has given, provides a predicate for law firms around the country and around the world to cobble together creative strategic litigation. It is essential. And guess what? The use and misuse by the United Nations of its world courts, the International Court of Justice, the International Criminal Court, is all part of this culture of hate, this conspiracy of hate, and there is no one in the world that will stand up to it better than we will. All of us in the we collective, including those that we hope will join us in this effort in the new International Leadership and Security Action Council. We need better security. We need training. We need the support of governments, but we also need your leadership. We cannot permit the legalization of hate that went on during the Shoah. We cannot permit the normalization of hate that is ongoing now, targeting one people, the Jewish people, to simply be written off as free speech. It is not free speech, and it is more than hate speech. It is actionable. We must do something about it. We will do something about it. Join us in this effort. Thank you, Avi. Thank you, Nat. Thank you, Edwin.
Oh, well, I'm going to say thank you, Richard. That was an extraordinary delivery. I'm almost shaking because of the implications. I made a couple of notes on what you said, and I just want to respond. First of all, I'm very happy about this new organization you've established. I would be the first one to say we don't need another organization, but this one we need because its slogan is zero tolerance. And you and I and everyone listening have all seen these organizations that want to walk down the middle of the road. Second of all, by the way, I'm the advisor for global anti-Semitism for your new organization.
Indeed you are. Thank you.
All right. So I'm signed up. I'll have to add that to my resume. You mentioned that the legal adoption of the genocide laws occurred just as Israel was declaring its independence in 1948. It's interesting that as soon, and I know you know this, as soon as it declared its independence, the Pasha fulfilled the requirements of genocide. It says, we're going to exterminate the Jews and finish off the job that was done. And of course, they had the help of all these 2,000 escaped Nazis who joined them through the rat lines. It is a conspiracy. And the actual Nuremberg evidence, the green volumes and the blue volumes, are entitled Conspiracy and Aggression. The actual Nuremberg set that's at the National Archives. And there we see an entire infrastructure of banks, or civil organizations, corporations, and we see judges. We see legal apparatuses. Most people don't know that the famous Interpol was started by Heydrich, the architect of the Holocaust. So I have a hunch you're going to aim high. I have a hunch you're going to aim right at the chief perpetrators of what's happening in the world. There is not a two-tiered situation where we get to stand up for everybody's rights except for us. And we're going to start that now.
Edwin, I've said this on one of your shows before. It's worthy of a short note. It was in 1944 that the Arab League convened and adopted the policies that are still in effect, the policies of hate, of rejectionism, of boycotting. And it was the Arab League that continued all of that until you began to see a few breaks, some mostly out of necessity, with Egypt, with Jordan, and more recently, and during the first Trump administration, with the Abraham Accords. But those other countries are still part of that Arab boycott, that whole Arab League alliance. Where does the accusation of Nazis come from today? You know, we are being accused of being the Nazis of today. It's all inane. One last comment. Look at the report from Jay Solomon that Barry Weiss at the Free Press, I understand, recently labeled the best investigative report out of the Free Press in 2025. It deals with the buying of America by the country of Qatar. You've had a special program, a series of special programs on Qatar. Qatar is a great example of a country that operates with immunity and impunity. As a result of their immunity, they thumb their nose. They want to buy everything. They have been buying Congress. They have been buying everybody they can buy. They've been buying universities. They're part of the culture of hate. They're part of the conspiracy, and they need to be held accountable. Thank you, Edwin.
All right. Wow, that was tremendous. Thank you, Richard. I've got a bunch of questions here. I can only take 3 because we're over already. But the first one is from the Villages. Do you actually think Mamdani can be charged and arrested? I'll answer that first. There's no statute of limitations on genocide. And just because a couple of months ago, in order to get elected, you said, well, I'll stop saying that, it does not make you immune. With this administration, we have an administration that has fought for the Jews, that sued Harvard, that sued all of these universities. Who would have thought that the American government would have stood up for Jews this way? And so I answer, yes, I think Mamdani can be charged and arrested. Richard, quickly.
I'll tell you, I'm not a New York licensed attorney. I shouldn't say this, but I want to know, what are the laws in New York about initiating now, as a direct result of what he did on day one, not all that he said before, but what he did on day one, a recall petition. Let's use democracy to get this undemocratic elected leader as mayor of New York out. Let's start a recall campaign. Let's have action. We cannot sit idly by. And those in our community who helped put him in, shame on you. Now let's undo the shame, because Shah still doesn't work. Let's take action.
Oh, very good. From the Watch Party in Newton, Mass. Are there military genocide actors that we can target? Well, Avi has already discussed one that is sitting in Louisiana. And as soon as I have a cup of coffee, I'm going to get this guy reported. Avi, are there more military actors either in the United States or sitting up in Canada who have come in through international immigration means that can be targeted by these genocide complaints?
So we're fortunate that it's not that many. This particular individual, Mahmoud Muhtadi, he got in through immigration fraud. That is, he denied that he was a terrorist. He said that he was an innocent Palestinian civilian who was trying to escape the fighting. And if he'd said that he was a member of the PFLP on his application, then obviously he would not be admitted to the United States. That said, of course it is possible to get your hands on many of these people. If they're not already somewhere where they can be grabbed in the United States, and most of them are not, the United States has just recently demonstrated once again that it has long arms and can reach many places in the world where you wouldn't think of it in order to take custody of individuals for crimes. And, not just narcotics, but crimes of terrorism and crimes of genocide. So there are lots and lots and lots of people out there who are part of the genocidal conspiracies against the Jews. And there are lots of people that can be reached by the United States. And frankly, I don't trust anyone else in the world other than the United States to do this work.
Well, that leads into my watch party in Chicago question. Will the UK and Canada cooperate with such efforts? I'm going to lay it out to you this way. Here we have a very conducive government, conducive administration that's willing to take up the cause and enforce the law that Nat Lewin says has not been properly enforced. The UK is hostile, but it's starting to turn around. And since the Bondi Beach massacre, a lot of people are starting to turn around. And so the answer is it will be an uphill battle in Canada. It will be an uphill battle in the UK, in Ireland, in Australia. But if you make the complaint in good faith and you give enough specifics, there must be an investigation, and we will try to make the law. So I believe if you're in the UK and watching this show, or if you're in Canada or any of the other countries which are involved, by all means, go to stopgenocideagainst.Israel.com. Look for your country. We only have 4 up, but Eve and Wes are trying to put others up soon, and we will try. Ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time. I'd like to go another hour or two. Hold for my closing word of wisdom just 2 minutes away. But first, I want to thank my very knowledgeable and prestigious guests, Nathan Lewin, Richard Heideman, and Avi Bell. Plus, I want to thank my talented international team, including Wes in the Bay Area, who worked day and night in recent days to put us this website, Eve in New Jersey, who assisted him, Holly in Nashville, Martin in Michigan, and Carol in Maryland, especially Carol, and as well as many others in numerous additional cities around the world. I'll see everyone back here in 2 weeks at 3 p.m. Eastern. You want to be a friend of the Edwin Black Show? Go to theedwinblackshow.com/support. Keep me independent. You want to hear me in person? Consult my events page at edwinblack.com. If you want to support StopGenocideAgainstIsrael.com, PayPal failed to stop our donations page. The square is there to help you. Until then, everybody, head over to any Barnes & Noble in the USA or any Amazon, Walmart, iTunes Books, Google Books, Kobo, or Audible.com platform in 190 countries across this roiling, toiling, boiling planet, where you can find any of my 325 book editions, such as IBM and the Holocaust and my latest, Israel Strikes Iran. You want an autographed copy? Hit edwinblack.com and click books. Get access alerts to participate in live future shows at theedwinblackshow.com. You'll see a much enhanced and exquisitely produced version of this very show and prior episodes by subscribing to our YouTube channel at The Edwin Black Show and click the notification button like tens of thousands of others have. Follow me at Edwin Black Book on X as well as Facebook. And now for my closing word of wisdom. You may think the world is lousy. Actually, the world is wonderful. Just there are a lot of lousy people on it. I'm zooming out from our nation's capital. Bless all of you. Pray for all that is unfolding before our very eyes.